Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and in this new series, we're making a top-down shooter in Unity. In the first 10 episodes or so, we'll be building the base game. During this time, we'll focus on beginner-friendly concepts as we tackle things like moving, shooting, player health, enemy waves, and even some basic items like potions and coins. Once we built that base, we'll move into more complex topics like random room generation, crafting custom weapons, adding shopping, and more. If you're already familiar with Unity and want to jump straight to the project, you can skip ahead to video number 1, where we get started with player inputs and movement. That said, if you're an absolute beginner, I encourage you to stay right here. In this short video, we're going to take a look at setting up your project in Unity, importing sprites, we'll do a tour of Unity, and mess around a little with adding objects and physics into our games. Alright, that's where we're headed in this video. Let's get started. Alright, so first things first, if you don't already have it, you will need to download Unity. Unity is free to download and use as long as you're making less than $200,000 in the last 12 months. So you can head on over to unity.com and click Download Unity. At this point, you'll be prompted to select your platform. I'm using Mac. And then we'll get a download for Unity Hub. Unity Hub is the launcher for Unity and the place where you'll download special modules you may need, so we'll start there. Once Hub is downloaded, you'll want to head on over to the Projects window and select that. This will open up a window with a whole bunch of templates. It will also show you the current editor version. You'll notice that for this series, I'm using Unity 6.3. At this point, I'm going to select the Universal 2D template. Selecting Universal 2D means that it will come pre-configured with modules for things like 2D animation, sprites, tile maps, so that you won't have to download them later when you need them. With that done, you can go ahead and give your project a name. Select the folder where you'd like to save this, and finally create the project. At this point, it will take you to your launcher screen where you can just click the project one more time in order to load it. And the very first time you load a project, it will take a little while as there's some setup it has to run. Now, the very first time you open up Unity, it can feel a little overwhelming as there's a lot of windows and tabs all over the place. We'll just take a few minutes here to look at some of these tabs and explain what they do. So first off, here in the middle, you can see this tab here for scene. This is our scene view, and it shows us essentially what is currently in the level we're building. If you click on this button up in the corner here, you can toggle your gizmos. All this does is allow you to see gizmos, so things like an outline for where your camera is. Now over here on the left is our hierarchy, and this is just a list of all the items we've put into our scene so far. You'll notice we have a camera and light so far. If we right click here, you can go to 2D object and add a sprite. I'm going to throw a capsule in here to work as my player for now, and I'll give it the name of player. Now that we've added an object in our scene, we have the ability to edit it and change things about it. Now over here on the right is the inspector, which is the place where we can change attributes of our game objects or add new components to make them do new things. For example, you can see that in the transform component here, I have the ability to change the scale in order to make my player smaller. And if I move them around, you'll notice that the position numbers are changing. Additionally, I have a sprite renderer here, which allows me to do things like click on the color in order to make him blue. And there's other options, but we'll explore those further in the series. Now, let's go ahead and add a component. I wouldn't mind to add some physics to this character, and physics in Unity are handled via something called a rigid body, in our case, a rigid body 2D. Here we can do things like alter the gravity scale. So for example, if I hit play, this will load my game, and with a gravity scale of 1, you'll notice that my player just drops off the screen. If I change that number to a 10, you'll notice that he is 10 times the gravity, and I can even do fun things like invert it to a negative value, and now my player will float upwards when the game begins. Now just to understand a little more about how physics work in Unity, let's put that gravity scale back to 1. Head over to our hierarchy where we can right click, add a 2D sprite, and this time we'll do a square. I'm going to grab this node on the corner here, expand it, and then drag it into place like ground under the player. We can then go to our sprite renderer and give it a color if we want, maybe green so it looks sort of like grass. Now at this point, if I hit play, you'll notice it's unexciting. The player drifts right through this. That's because we need to add some collision detection. In Unity, this is done via colliders. So while clicked on our square, here we'll add a box collider 2D. Now if I click Edit Collider, you'll notice that nodes appear where you can change the collider, but it's already mapped perfectly to my square, so I'll just leave that as is. Now if I hit play at this point, we still don't have anything happening, and that's because our player doesn't have collision detection. So let's add a new component, and again, make sure you get the 2D version. Here, hitting edit, you can see that the capsule collider maps itself perfectly to our player, and when I hit play, he now collides with his environment. If you're just learning, I encourage you to take a moment here to experiment a bit, opening up the transform and maybe adding some rotation to your ground. When you hit play, you'll notice that you start to get some neat physics interactions. You can expand that a little further by adding more shapes into the scene. Command D or Control D on PC will duplicate the object, and you can just drag this second one into place, maybe give it some positive rotation, and I'm going to make these angles a little sharper. Maybe I'll make my player a little shorter so he's rounder, and now when I hit play, it's starting to get more interesting. You could make a whole little marble course out of this. And if you'd like to get comfortable with manipulating objects in Unity, I encourage you to do just that. Take a moment here to make as complex a marble course as you can. That said, we won't be using platformer physics for our game, so at this point I'm just going to delete these objects for now, set my player back to his 0.5 size, and drag him back into place. Now later on we will add collision back in, but for now I'm going to remove this and wait until we're ready. And finally, since we're making a top-down shooter game, we don't want any gravity, as we're going to want to be able to move freely in all 4 directions. Alright, let's take a look at the bottom of our screen now. Now down here we have this project window which holds all of the assets in our game. Now there's a few default things here like our input system actions, and we'll explore those more in video number 1. That said, what I do want to show you now is how to actually import graphics of your own. Now for this project, I'm going to be using PixelPoem's dungeon tile set. It is free to use for both commercial and non-commercial games, and if you'd like to follow along with the exact same sprites I'm using, I'd encourage you to download that now. Now as you're downloading though, don't forget to like the set, maybe leave a comment to say thanks to PixelPoem, or if you've got some spare cash, maybe you'd like to buy him a cup of coffee at the same time. And once you get in here, you can go ahead and download. I'm going to be downloading both the dungeon asset pack as well as the enemy animation set. Once you've downloaded those files, you'll want to locate them in your downloads folder, and they will come as zipped files, so you'll need to extract them before you can actually use them. Whether you're in Mac, Windows, or Linux, you should be able to do this with a right click. Once you've unzipped them, you can head on into Unity. Let's right click and create a folder which we'll call sprites. We can then open up our downloads one more time and drag those new folders in here. I'm going to head right into the dungeon pack, go into the characters, and I'll be working with the priest idol. I'll use priest 1 version 1 here. And we're just going to set him up. Let's begin by opening up the sprite renderer on our player. I'm actually just going to drag in that priest into the sprite slot. Now if I zoom in, you'll notice he's very small, very blurry, and very blue. Obviously we don't want that. Let's begin by turning the color back to white so we're not editing the color at all. Then I'm just going to actually hold down shift and click all of these priest variations. And the first thing we want to do is fix the size. There are not 100 pixels per unit for this. He's actually made on a 16 by 16 grid. Alright, that's a little better. Now first thing I want to do is head back to my player, and because I changed his scale to 0.5, I want to set him back at a scale of 1. I like to leave all my sprites at a scale of 1 and pretty much never touch the scale in game. At this point then, we can shift click all of our priests again, and this time we're going to change our filter mode from bilinear, which is designed for more high definition graphics to smooth the edges, and go with point no filter instead, which will give us sharp, crisp pixel art. I'm also going to go to our format and change to a higher quality RGBA 32-bit, which will sharpen the colors and help preserve the way he's actually supposed to look. Alright, that's looking much better. And if I click on game view, we can see that he's looking like pretty much what we want him to in order to actually start making a game. Alright, there is your intro to Unity. We've got our scene view where we'll build our scene, our hierarchy, which has the list of objects currently in the scene, the inspector, which allows us to edit attributes or add components to those game objects, and also our project folder down at the bottom, which contains all of the assets, including things we'll use in the next video for moving, as well as our sprites. I hope you found this one helpful, and I hope to see you in the first video where we actually get this character moving around in the scene. Till then, this is Matt with Nightrun Studio. Cheers.